The Gorowitz Institute Service Award was created to recognize law enforcement leaders for their contributions to safeguarding our nation and, in the word of the ADL's charter, securing justice and fair treatment for all. Those who have received the award, you can find the full list in the program, are among the most important and influential leaders of law enforcement. I am particularly honored to recognize today a leader who has dedicated his life to these ideals and embodies the spirit of public service. The Chief of the Houston Police Department, Art Acevedo. With more than 5,000 sworn officers and 1,000 civilian support personnel, HPD is one of the largest police departments in the United States. It serves the nation's 4th largest city, soon to be the 3rd largest, which is 10 times the size of Washington, D.C., and one of our nation's most ethnically and culturally diverse jurisdictions. Chief Acevedo began his law enforcement career among the riots and gang violence of East Los Angeles with the California Highway Patrol in 1986. He rose through the ranks and became CHP's chief after 19 years of distinguished service. He arrived in Austin, Texas in 2007 as chief of the Austin Police Department at a very difficult time of tension between the city and its minority communities. When he left for Houston in 2016, he was widely praised as a moral and joyous leader who was the right choice at the right time. Art Acevedo came to Houston as its first Hispanic police chief. With the population booming and violent crime going unsolved, he found his new department struggling for resources. Under the chief's leadership, HPD completely changed the way it approaches violent crime and saw a dramatic turnaround. Homicides are down 15% since last year, and HPD's clearance rate, which is a measurement of solved crimes, have gone up 70% since the chief's arrival in 2016. Success of this nature is almost always a product of a lifelong commitment. Growing up, Chief Acevedo knew he wanted to uphold the law and serve our nation because he knew firsthand what life is like without the rule of law and in the absence of freedom. Chief Acevedo was born in Cuba and lived through Castro's revolution as a child. His family brought him to the United States as a refugee at the age of 4. His parents raised him with what the chief describes as a real appreciation of history and reminded him that constantly freedom is the greatest gift of all. His background also gives rise to a unique understanding of the concerns of the diverse communities in Houston. Chief Acevedo is a strong proponent of community policing, or as he prefers to call it, relational policing, which he views every interaction between the community members and police officers as an opportunity to forge relationships and build trust. Chief Acevedo routinely goes on patrol himself as a commitment to both his troops and to build emotional capital with the community that he serves. He has made a commitment to his troops that the day he cannot do their job at the patrol level is the day that he will quit. No wonder that a news story noted that those on the street who might otherwise avoid an uniformed officer seem thrilled to run into the guy they call Chief Art. At the beginning of this year, Chief Acevedo became president of the Major Cities Chiefs Association, whose membership is comprised of chiefs and sheriffs of the 69 largest law enforcement agencies in the United States and the 9 largest in Canada. The chief is a graduate of the ADL's Advanced Training School, and his department participates in ADL's Law Enforcement and Society program that increases law enforcement's understanding of their role as protectors of the American people and of the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, On behalf of the Anti-Defamation League and the Gerry family, please join me in welcoming the recipient of the ADL's 2019 Gorowitz Institution Service Award, Chief Art Acevedo.
I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards or something here. That was amazing. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Mr. Gerry, Adam, thank you and your family for your vision and for supporting this cause that we're here to celebrate. And I'm really going to accept this on behalf of all of our colleagues and all the men and women in law enforcement. But I think today, you know, you think about the ADL and what it's done and what it's meant. And the good news is that the ADL exists. The bad news is that the need for the ADL and its mission is greater today than it was yesterday, last year, and the decade before. I want you all to think and pause for a minute and take stock of where we're at as a nation and as a world, where people are being targeted for the religion they choose. They're being targeted for the person they choose to love. They're being targeted for the color of their skin. They're being vilified for their nation of birth. They're being vilified, mothers having their children taken from their bosom. And I get vilified because I was raised to not forget where you came from. I was raised to not forget the blessings you've received. And I was raised to reach back and bring people forward. And so I just want to tell the folks in this room, thank you for your vigilance. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for the fight against hate. And for me, it is personal. I'm not Jewish, but I love the Jewish people. See, my Uncle Billy, my great Uncle Billy, was a French Jew. And I remember growing up in El Monte, California, just outside of Los Angeles, Uncle Billy would come over with Tia Tata. And I remember as a young child asking him about some numbers he had on his arm. And I asked Uncle Billy, what are those numbers about? And I might get emotional. But he started talking to me about losing his entire family in World War II at the hands of the Nazis. And I'm going to tell you all something. I'm not going to apologize to anyone for making a comparison between the failures of police officers in Nazi Germany then and for the failure of some today to not stand up to hate. For the failure of some to not be heard and to not lift up their voices. And I'm not going to apologize for calling out people that when there's a gathering of people full of hate in their hearts, saying that there's good and bad in the crowd. No. There's a distinct line. There's a very distinct line between love and hate. There's a very distinct line between wrong and right. And I'm proud to say that this chief, this generation of police leaders, history will show that yes, the FBI are the good guys. That yes, our intelligence services are the good guys. That yes, it is right to stand up against hate. And lastly, I will say there are things that we can do about gun violence in this country. And to the NRA, yeah, a little political, but I'm going to tell you something. Every time you call me out, what it tells me is you're afraid because you know there's an awakening in this country. God is watching. God delivered the first immigrants, and they happen to be Jews in the book of Exodus. He taught us what immigration's about. He taught us what love's about. And I just want to close with saying, thank you, ADL. We stand with you. History is going to treat the ADL with the respect and the absolute credit you deserve for training us in law enforcement to be vigilant, to be aware, and to stand against hate everywhere we see it. God bless you all, and thank you for this recognition. Thank you.